Hell,
So maybe
the spider swarm almost killed one person.
So you guys wanted to try and collect some of the crystals, you were saying?
Yeah, I was just gonna go and pick up all the ones that Sigismund had like knocked on the ground. Then when he
Sure.
ran by, like, what was your metaphor there? Like Little House on the Prairie.
Yes, exactly. A little girl running through the field.
Okay. And add those to the group loot page.
Yeah. Go. I'd say probably you can put like 20 pink crystals.
Okay.
Make it 21 because I have mine in my pocket as well, but Ayan has bad memories connected to it, so he would gladly hand it over.
I have at least 2.
Sure. 25 pink crystals.
Okay. Added.
Um,
And anyone else need to do anything while we're here, or can we get back on board?
I'm good.
Cool. So, as you guys kind of rush out down the exit back towards the diviner, as you're exiting the cave, you see Calbrax is waiting for you on the shore there. He's got a scroll unfurled in front of him, and he says, "Stand still, this will only take a moment." And he starts to utter an incantation, and as he does, he kind of gestures you all to come closer to him. And in a flash of blue light, you are instantly transported to a circle of runes in a forest floor. There are dark pine trees towering above you, and there are like enormous spider webs that are kind of blocking out the sky, kind of intertwining between the tops of the trees. You see all across the battlefield in front of you, injured and dead harpers are laid on stretchers, and you see the remains of skeletons and zombies and constructs littering the ground. Off in the distance before you, you see the monolithic black tower that Zaldara calls home, and you smell flesh burning, and you hear the ringing of steel emanating from this place of horror. You appear, and you hear the voice of Ramilia call out, and she says, she's behind you, and she says, "Stay here." And you notice her left leg is crisp and burned, and her right arm is limp by her side and bleeding fairly profusely. And she turns towards the tower and she screams as loud as she can, "Zaldara, it is done! We have your book!" And an instant later, there's a terrible crack nearby, and appearing before you, there's a woman with a face that is half beautiful and half skull. And despite her ragged breath and multiple fresh wounds she has, the Duchess of Rod is still clearly a force to be reckoned with, and she stands towering before you. She points a finger down at Ramilia, and she lifts Ramilia high into the air, and kind of with a twist of her wrist, she drops the elf back down to the ground, and Ramilia falls with a heavy thud, unconscious. And then the lich turns towards the rest of you and Calbrix, and she points down at Wuce, and she says, "I'll take that back," in a defiant voice. You assume she's talking about her book.
Not the rat.
Not the rat, no. Although she'd probably take him too.
Well,
Thank you very much.
So someone hold the torch right beside the book.
Yeah, I lower the torch down toward the book, and I gesture for Garn to put his hands over it as well. Well, actually, Nat, the character, or Nat, the player, remembers that we probably need radiant damage to injure it. Not fire damage, but whether Ayan would know that. So I just sort of hovered the torch over the book.
But as he said that, I'll put my hand on it.
Yeah, what's your passive perception?
15.
Passive perception.
Gonna be 15 here.
Yeah, so you see like a momentary flash of fear across her eyes as you put the flame down towards the book. And she says, no, don't burn it. What is it that you want?
Simply,
we need information.
what is it that we want?
You remember that
Smith.
the whole purpose of this was to bargain for information, any information that the Harpers believe that the source of this death curse is related to the magic that liches use to create their phylacteries. That whatever is causing people to not be able to be resurrected from the dead has something to do with their souls becoming trapped or something. And so they decided to storm Zaldara's tower and try and get control of her phylactery, because they know that's the only thing that they can use to bargain with her for information on anything she might know about this type of magic or curse.
So,
Okay, we ask her for that.
Sure. She says, so what do you ask? What do you ask her specifically?
Zaldara, if I may. It seems that we have something that you want, and I think that you may have some information that we want, and I think so we can both walk away from this, or all of us can walk away from this, rather. Myself to the pub, and yourself to whatever hole you came out of. We can return this book to you, but we're looking for information on the soulmonger, the curse that strict this land.
She says, I have been researching the curse myself. This soulmonger that you speak of. It is the only thing that could cause a phenomenon like this. It is an ungodly device. What its purpose is beyond consuming souls is unclear to me, but I do know that the amount of dark energy that it can gather is enough to power an undead being like this world has never seen.
Who might be wielding such a device, such an artifact?
She says, there's only one I know of that has the power, the ingenuity, and the distaste for this plane to enact such a device upon it. And his name is... his name is Acerak.
Acerak. And where might we go and call on this Acerak?
I can't presume.
Does he have any friends? Does he have any followers that we can go and discuss this with?
She says, I only met Acerak once. He is a lich like me. He is feared throughout the multiverse. I don't know much more about him than that he works alone, and his motivations are entirely unclear. He might be one of the most powerful beings that exists through space and time anywhere.
That's comforting.
And you don't know where we can find him, or it.
Zaldara says, I've traced the curse's origins to a place called Cholt. I know that somewhere in the jungles of that faraway place is where the soulmonger must lie. Where Acerak has hidden it remains unclear to me. I am a powerful being, but I am nothing in comparison to Acerak. And it seems that this curse is even affecting my phylactery itself. Were I to die, my soul would even be consumed into the soulmonger, and I would perish. And this is something I fear above all else. If you give me my book, all I wish is to solve this curse as much as you do, because I am not ready yet to leave this plane or my life behind.
And what kind of help might a pretty lady such as yourself give us if we go looking for this?
She says, the help I can give you is allowing you to leave here with your lives.
Fair enough.
Boy.
Any other questions?
I turn to Malia, and she's unconscious. Is the other lady here? Where?
Yeah, you can see that she seems to be tending to some of the wounded harpers back behind you guys off in the forest where many of the wounded and dead have been dragged to. It seems that Syndra is there kind of hobbling between some of the people that are still alive, trying to bandage or help their wounds as best as she can.
That all of the information that we need?
Looks like we're going to the jungle, boys.
And
okay.
Zaldara says, I told you everything that I know now. My book. And she holds out her skeletal hand towards you, Wuce.
Wait, why did we get this book to begin with?
To get this information.
I look around at the rest of the group to see if they want me to give the book back.
Can you give us some kind of guarantee that you won't just try to kill us all when we give you this book?
She says, I have lived in this cloakwood for hundreds of years. Up until now, I have left the people of the Sword Coast rest in peace. I have minded my own business, and I've never harmed anyone, even those who seem to wander into my woods. I let them go on their way in peace, and I only wish to have my peace back. I have killed enough harpers today that I'd say that the debt is settled. I have no wish to kill you. I only have wish to solve this curse just like you do.
That seems extraordinarily reasonable.
That's very fair. Hand her back the book, Wuce.
Yeah, give her the book.
I hesitantly give her the book back.
She takes it. She kind of grabs it by the spine. You feel like one of her skeletal fingers kind of gently brush over the top of your the palm of your hand as she grabs it from you, and you kind of feel a little chill run through your bones as she momentarily touches you. And she tucks the book under her arm, and she says, "A wise decision. Now be gone from this place. I don't want to see any of your faces in my woods again."
I'll turn around and run to Ramalia, try to see if I could get her up.
Yeah, go ahead and make you can make a medicine check on her.
All right.
You see that Zaldara just kind of turns. There are still kind of harpers in the battlefield that are fighting off the various undead creatures that Zaldara seems to have summoned to combat the assault on her tower, and she just kind of glides through the battlefield towards her tower, eventually making it to the front. And as she gets to the front doors, they kind of open on their own, and she glides inside, and they slam behind her as the remaining harpers that are still alive continue to battle the remaining undead here on the field. And as the battle dies down, Remilia seems to be still breathing, at least. It doesn't seem that Zaldara has killed her, but she's still unconscious.
I start trying to help. I pull out my medicine bag and start trying to help other harpers.
Yeah, so anybody could make a history check if they wanted to.
I am a historian, I guess. What's my history?
Yeah, Riceak, especially you being a man of the sea and going from different ports and places and being fairly exploratory, you've probably met um, and maybe even had many drunken conversations with a lot of harpers over the course of your time, um, and you know that typically harpers operate fairly independently. They either operate alone or in very small cells. And there are now scores of them here, and this is probably the largest public gathering of harpers in quite some time. Um, uh, um, and so to have this many, the harpers are kind of the keepers of dangerous. Their whole goal is to keep dangerous magical artifacts or information out of people who would try and use them for dastardly purposes. And so, like, to see this many dead harpers in one place is fairly disconcerting because many of them are charged with protecting these powerful artifacts, and that's kind of how they keep them hidden because they find something dangerous and powerful, and one harper will take that item and they will guard it and hide it somewhere. And so each one has this like independent thing that they're in charge of, and that's how they keep it from the information from getting out and spreading. And so now seeing all these dead harpers lying around, you realize like there's probably a lot of this now dangerous magical things that are hidden in various places, probably throughout um, the realm, that just now don't have any protection and are just up for grabs if anybody can wheedle the information out of the right places. But
I don't know what I don't know what this soulmonger is, but there's a lot of evil things up for grabs, and this thing better be it seems to be truly powerful to get this many harpers together.
Yeah, it's definitely a sign of like something very, very big to see this many of the harpers all gather together, making such a big sacrifice um, because of the responsibilities that they typically carry on a day-to-day basis. But you do manage to get around and help some of the injured ones. Definitely, Ayan, for sure. Sindra notices you beginning to start help as well, and she kind of hobbles over towards you, Ayan, and she says, "Well, it's good to see that you've made it out alive. I guess that means that you've returned with the book. Do we have the information that we need?"
Yes, I would say so. We have spoken to the Duchess of Rot, and Wuce has given her book back after Riceak. Is it Riceak or Rychek?
Whatever. It's Riceak, but it's okay.
Riceak. Okay. And Riceak was able to question her, and we have determined that the Soulmonger, this device causing the death curse, is in the jungles of Chult.
She says, through the course of my life, I have been to Chult a few times. I actually am good friends with one of the merchant princes that lives there. I have a teleportation circle set up in the lands of Chult, and I can take us there when we're ready. Oh, hey, your camera popped up for me, Sigismund.
Yeah, so did my. Yeah, I can see Nat too.
Oh, can you?
What's up?
That's
Yeah.
so weird. And she says,
What, 2 hours into the game?
yeah. She says, I can get us there fairly quickly. Unless you guys have any business left in Baldur's Gate, I can take us there any time that we're ready to go.
I'll say I may have some business, but you could probably take care of that for me if you were to go there.
She looks over at you and she says, well, what is your business?
We met in the city for the purpose of burying an old friend of ours. And she has 2 children. And I would very much like to see them taken care of. If they don't have any family to take care of them in this city, I would like them to have the reward you promised me. I would like them to have it and to hire a mercenary to escort them to my birthplace where they could live a nice life.
Ramilia had promised you each 100 gold. But Syndra says, I am an old woman now, and this curse has taken hold on me. But at one time in my life, I was an adventurer, much like some of you. I've acquired wealth in my life, and I have acquired many powerful artifacts. I don't think it will be much trouble to see that the children are taken care of. I can have them sent to your birthplace. She sees... What paladin are you in order of?
I'm a paladin of Lyra.
Lyra? Can you remind me of what Lyra is?
Lyra is the Joybringer.
The Joybringer.
The Revel Mistress. She's in charge of the joy.
Does she have do you have anything like that would signify that you're wearing like visibly on your person that would signify you as a member of that order of Lyra?
It would be on my shield.
Gotcha. So she kind of gazes at your shield and she sees the symbol of your order and she says, she says, a place that is under the watchful eye of your goddess would be a good place for children to grow up. A joyful place indeed. I can see that this is done. I can send word to some of my contacts to make sure that they make their way there safely, as well as generously give them the portion of your reward that Ramilia has offered you. That should take care of them for some time.
Thank you. I will trust you to do this for me.
And she says, and on top of the reward that Ramilia has offered you, if you all manage to somehow discover the source, this soulmonger, and stop this curse before I die, I will allow as well each of you to choose an artifact that I have collected over the course of my life.
Ooh.
Sounds intriguing.
Very.
And so she says, then if you are all ready, it seems that the battle is done. The harpers that are left, I think, can take care of their own, and we can head to Port Nyanzaru.
Oh, it's a lovely place.
Never been. I'm excited.
Okay, I'm ready.
So she kind of like hobbles and finds a broken branch or something, and she begins to trace out she draws like a big circle, and she begins to like trace runes, arcane runes into the dirt. As she kind of traces this circle around you guys, she kind of like ushers you all to stand inside, and she steps in the center of you all, and she finishes the last rune, and the the rune that she's etched into the ground begins to glow, and in like a flash of blue light, you feel like your entire entity begin to like twist and spin, and it's kind of like Stargate, where you like go into the Stargate and you see that rush of like this galaxy go, on the sides of you as you feel the like your entire being just kind of like get balled into this little sphere of energy and just slide through the multiverse, and suddenly with a pop, you appear in the port city of Port Nyanzaru, on the island continent or um, of Cholt, and
And what do we see? Where are we?
here we go. I'll get you over to the map here.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, not a dungeon. Sweet.
And you appear in a tropical city under a blazing sun. Instantly, as your forms kind of appear, you see that below you, the blue circle that she had traced, you see that light of the magic kind of fade away beneath you, and you hear the familiar sounds of a harbor. You hear creaking ropes and slapping waves. Um, you hear heavy barrels rolling across cobblestone, mingled with voices shouting and cursing in an unfamiliar language. Uh, uh, there's sounds of like clicks, inhalations, and kind of sing-songy words that make it sound almost musical. You smell the aroma of unfamiliar spices and tropical fruit mixes, maybe kind of familiar to you, Ayan. Um, uh, and you also have that wharfside smell of fish, tar, and canvas. And beyond all that, you see Port Nyanzaru explode before you. Um, it's colorful, and the buildings are painted in bright shades of blues and greens and oranges. Um, the walls all around you are adorned with the walls of the buildings, and the high walls of the city are all adorned with murals portraying giant reptiles and mythical heroes. Every building sports baskets and clay urns of colorful flowers that are draped in leafy vines. Um, you can see nearby a cat-like humanoid minstrel strumming on a lute, wearing bright-colored clothing adorned with feathers and shells. As people kind of pass by him, they toss copper coins into a little bucket that he's set down in front of him. You see multicolored pennants um, all around the city, and sun awnings flutter atop the city walls. Uh, a crowd of children kind of dart past you. Um, they're all dressed in feathered hats and have capes on as they race past, squealing in delighted terror, as a street performer and wearing a costume of a big toothed lizard stomps and roars behind them. The whole city seems to be bustling, sweating, laughing, swearing, and singing.
Oh, this is my kind of place. Does anyone know where we should go first? Are there any like Harper contacts?
Syndra says,
oh, she's still with us.
yeah, she appears there with you, and she says, welcome to Port Nyanzaru. It is
hot.
It is hot. Yeah. Instantly, like it's very hot. It's probably I'd say around 90 Fahrenheit, maybe 35 Celsius. Instantly, it's very humid. Like you all instantly are like begin to just like become drenched in a moisture. But it's a clear sunny day. Um, the streets are just bustling with colorful people. They all seem to be wearing kind of light linens, colorful short cropped pants and kilts. Um, uh, uh, um, Sindra says, um, there are 2 inns that I know of here on the port. One of them is called the Thundering Lizard. I would recommend that place if you're looking for more of a raucous time. Nearby to there's another place called the Kaya's House of Repose. It's a little quieter if you need a good night's sleep, but both of the inns are located near the Red Bazaar. Um, she says, I'm going to visit my old friend Wakanga. He's one of the merchant princes that resides here in the port. But if you walk with me, I can guide you to the inns if you'd like to get settled in. Otherwise, I guess the best thing to start doing is just asking around. If what Zaldara says is true, and the source of the curse is here, there are probably people here already who know of it or are doing researches on it themselves. I'm going to see what Wakanga knows, my friend, um, and if I need you, I will find a way to summon you. Otherwise, he lives in uh, otherwise he lives in the he lives on Throne Hill, and he kind of points, and you can see now that Port Nine Zaru is kind of this tiered city, and each tier is kind of lined by these tall walls, and all along lining the walls are like those big murals painted of different kind of. There's a lot of like jungle scenery painted on along the like big walls of the city. There are scenes of like dinosaurs kind of stomping through the forest. There are scenes of you pass by one and it's like of a gladiatorial arena and you see like the arena's filled with people and there's like men kind of with spears jabbing towards like a big horned beast in the center of the arena, and she begins to just start kind of walking off. Uh, this map's kind of this map's kind of weird. It's oriented in a strange way. So,
Sintra, one moment, please.
sure.
Uh, and what if we need to get a hold of you? Where will you be?
She says, I was getting to that, and she points up to one of the tiers of the city, and she says, that is called Throne Hill. That is where Wakanga um, lives. That's where I'll be staying for my time here. I think while you guys are here in the jungles on Cholt, I will remain um, in hopes that you find the source of this curse and you are able to save not only me but many like me who are beginning to um, move towards death. And she kind of points up to one of the tiered hills, and you can see there are these large stone bridges. Here's the travel token here, um, right down here. So this is where you guys have kind of appeared near the docks. And as you guys are kind of walking through the city, she starts kind of just describing as she goes, as you guys are walking towards the place that she had called the Red Bazaar, and uh, so as she points, you can see kind of this walled off portion of the harbor, and she says, "This is the harbor ward," and she points to the little walled off portion, and she says they call these the Royal Docks. She says, uh, Cholt used to be run by um, uh, various royal families, um, uh, but now, uh, but now they've all kind of been pushed out of the jungles. They used to be great kingdoms out in the jungles of Cholt, um, but eventually they were all pushed inwards to Port Nine Zaru, and now the city is run by 7 merchant princes. They control the trade and the city as a whole. Anything that happens in the city doesn't happen without one of the approval one of the merchant princes. And these are the royal docks reserved especially for the prince's business, the merchant prince's business as well. And she continues through, and she goes under like a large stone archway, and you guys pass by what looks like a kind of a dry dock where there's a ship that's been brought up, and it looks like people are doing repairs on it. Um, uh, and then as you guys kind of approach one of the tiered levels of the port, she points up and she says, you can see this kind of towering villa over one of the walls, and there are these two long stone bridges that connect. Um, uh, and she says, Wakanga, he lives up in one of the palisades there. Um, and she points to one that's a little taller than the rest of them. It's got kind of a blue rooftop, um, and much like many of the other buildings, it's colorfully painted and stuff. And she says, if you need to find me, I will be staying with him for the duration of our stay here in the port, as you guys delve into the jungles looking for a solution to our little problem, or maybe our big problem. And she says, if you continue down along the street, so this map's kind of orientated in a weird way. Like north is east, south is west. Like so, this is south, north, east, and west. And so she says, east of the harbor is the Red Bazaar. It's just after the Colosseum. It's very hard to miss.
Okay, Sindra, you mentioned us going into the jungle. And yesterday, or a few days ago, sorry, I have a lot of spider venom crawling around in my veins right now. Are you saying that you had a map you showed me?
Ah, yes.
Could we make use of your map if we are to travel into the jungle?
Yep. She reaches into her robes and she pulls out a few things. She pulls out the payment that Ramilda had promised, and she gives you each a sack of 100 gold, except for Sigismund, which she asks you one final time if you're sure that you want to donate to the this to the children of Stella.
I am sure. If we can't solve this curse and get her back in the world of the living, I want the children to have this.
And then she hands you her map of Cholt Ayan here, and she says, you know, as you can see, much of the jungles have been hard to chart, but I've been able to collect an outline of Cholt, as well as some of the areas just outside of the city walls. But and I'll just be quite honest with you, you're not the first group of adventurers that I've hired in the last month to come to Cholt and investigate this curse. There have been two other groups before you. They disappeared into the jungles, and they have yet to return.
And what was the last place that they were heard of?
She says, well, I know that one of them hired a ship to take them to the far eastern portion of the island. They had heard rumor that they had heard rumor that there were a band of goblins there that they call them Batiri here in Cholt. Anyone who refers to a goblin, you'll hear them refer to them as Batiri. That had come across something more powerful than any goblin should have their hands on. And she says the other group I know, they just went directly into the jungles from the Port Nine Zaru here. They were headed, last I heard, toward Camp Righteous, along the river, but nobody's heard from them in a week or so now.
Right. Well, that gives us a few things to look at and consider.
She says,
Yeah.
she says, as more and more people arrive in Cholt, in the port here, to try and discover the origins of this curse, there have been several guides, jungle guides, popping up in the city, offering their services. Perhaps you can find one of them. They might be able to assist you in navigating the dangerous jungles.
Do you have any recommendations?
She says, I don't know any of them personally, but a good place to start would be probably at one of the inns that I recommended. It's likely that you'll be able to find one of them there at least. And if not, some more rumors about the city. Although I've been here a few times, I don't tend to keep up with the goings-on of day-to-day or the politics.
Okay, well, I think that I know which inn our group is likely to choose. So if you would point us to the
The Thundering
said
Lizard.
the Thundering Lizard, we will be on our way.
Yes, so she does point you down towards the east of the harbor, and you can actually see now from this vantage point the high walls of the Colosseum, even from here, kind of across the bay. She says if you just head down towards the Colosseum, just beyond that is the Red Bazaar. That is where you will find the Thundering Lizard.
Let's go. This place is way too exciting to just be standing here.
Great, yeah, I think we head off that way.
Cool. So, as you continue heading down through the streets of the city, you pass by a big, what seems to be kind of a market of sorts. There are these large billowing tents as you make your way down towards the Colosseum. You can see kind of inside as you pass by. It does appear to be like just a very large kind of tented market space. You can see inside various vendors peddling all kinds of wares, from timber to spices to medicines concocted from jungle plants. You can even see you can see a peddler selling what seems to be large skulls. You see pelts of various jungle creatures like tiger pelts and carved ivory works. You can see actually a little batiri vendor that seems to have little handmade items. You see colorful feathers and tropical fruits. You see kind of a swinging through the rafters above all the people's heads. There's a monkey swinging towards you guys as you pass by. You smell the pleasant scent of cooking meats wafting out. Just a large bustling marketplace as you continue down towards the bazaar. That's right here. There's a tall wall on the other side of you, and as you guys continue down, you come to a little fork in the streets. You kind of have to the streets are so full during the daytime here that you kind of have to keep a fairly close eye on each other as you kind of have to bump and there's not a whole lot of space to move freely, so you're kind of having to shimmy through the crowd a bit as you make your way down farther and farther. You can actually see now, it seems like there's a fairly steady stream of people making their way towards the Colosseum. It seems like maybe there's some sort of event going on currently.
I want to keep my eyes out for like an armory or a blacksmith place.
Yeah, sure. Actually, you can hear the sounds of anvil pounding nearby as you pass by the Colosseum.
I don't know about you guys, but my rapier was quite ineffective against that ghostly thing that we ran into. I want to look for other means of dispatching people.
Sure, I'll go with you.
So as you guys head towards the sound of the anvil ringing, you kind of duck in through one of the alleyways and try to follow the sound. And kind of close as you nearby the get closer and closer to the Colosseum, you can now see like towering the walls of the Colosseum towering over your heads. You see kind of adorning all along the rim large statues of what you would assume to be the greatest champions that the Colosseum has ever had that line the tops of the walls. And you then find the source of the sound of the anvil, and there's kind of a large, sturdy, dark-skinned man there. He's got a head shaved bald. He has kind of dark brown eyes, and he's wearing he's bare-chested. He's got these bright green kind of knee-high pants on, and he's wearing a leather apron, and he's you see he's got a barrel next to him, and there are these long spears all kind of jutting out from the barrel, and he seems to be hammering spearheads out as you guys approach him. He's kind of facing away from you, banging out a hot piece of metal into the shape of a long bladed spearhead.
Excuse me.
Yeah, he seems to kind of hear you over the banging. He kind of turns his head over his shoulder at you, and
I'm looking for one of those short curved swords that those Eastern sailors like to use.
You see, like in his he's kind of got an open forge, so there the place that he's working, the walls are kind of, there's two walls that are kind of made out of bamboo, and then it's got kind of a bamboo roof, but then the rest of it's kind of open, and it's up a couple of steps, and in the center of the space that he's working in, there's kind of a bellow and a forge there, and you can see various kind of exotic weaponry that are hanging along the bamboo walls that he has, and you do see the weapon that you're looking for hanging on one of the pegs, and he sets down the spear that he's working on, and he goes over to the wall, and he pulls it down off the pegs that it's resting on, and he gives it a couple quick swings, from side to side deftly, and without even saying anything, he kind of hands it out towards you. And he just kind of looks at you kind of with an appraising gaze.
Can I do some sort of check to see if this blade is like of any quality?
Yeah, you can make an investigation check on it.
All right. Jesus.
Well, so what I'm picturing, what you're looking for is kind of like, I don't know, maybe something similar to like what the Dothraki use a little bit.
Well, yeah, like a scimitar.
Oh, okay, or just like a scimitar. Okay. Well, it is actually more kind of like those blades that the Dothraki use, in Game of Thrones. It's this large, very wicked-looking blade, It's got a heavy hafted handle that's wrapped in very nice leather, and the blade does seem to be very sharp on one edge. It seems to be very finely crafted. Yeah.
Ayan, I don't recognize this kind of blade. Do you know anything about this?
It's not. It's not.
Um,
Yeah, it's not necessarily a deft weapon.
Yeah, I'm looking for something more finesse.
this is called a hopesh. I could be wrong. I believe this type of sword that you are looking for is more of a scimitar or a cutlass.
So the smith that's standing there, he still doesn't say anything. He seems to understand. He seems to understand like your common tongue, but you get the impression that he can't speak it very well. And he kind of has a disappointed look as you don't seem to approve of the blade that he handed you. But he puts it back up on the pegs that it was resting on, and he grabs a different blade that's more of like a scimitar. It's a long curved blade that starts thin at the bottom and grows kind of wider as the blade reaches the arc of its tip. It's this one also appears to be very finely crafted. The blade is very sturdy. It seems to be made of this dark black iron, and the handle is kind of wrapped in this almost reptilian green leather.
It looks like a fine blade, but it's not quite what I need.
The scimitar is what you were looking for.
Correct.
Yeah.
Not this
No,
Dothraki thing.
This is the one that he hands you. He puts the Dothraki thing back and gives you one more suited to what you're probably looking for.
Okay. Well, this is something that I'm looking for. Then, how much do you need for it?
He just looks at you for a minute and he says, 10 gold.
10 gold? Arax. Okay, I hand him 10.
He takes it from you with a grin, and he kind of slides it into the pouch on his apron, and he just turns away from you and goes back to hammering on his spearhead. He kind of puts it back into the heat of the forge for a few minutes to kind of get it hot again, and then he goes back to banging out the spearheads.
That was easy.
All right, anyone else need anything?
A good time.
Onward to the Thundering Lizard, then.
Sure. So you guys kind of that was kind of like right down around in here between the wall of the Colosseum, and you see people kind of now filtering down these stone steps like towards the Colosseum. It's not like a massive crowd, but it's enough to like think that there's probably something going on at the arena now or soon at least. But you guys kind of continue. You go down through another kind of tight alleyway and come out on the other side, and you see now. You can see now why Syndra was calling this place the Red Bazaar. You see various tents set up, and you see butchers kind of hacking away at large slabs of these big lizard-like creatures, and you see nearby they're like draining just buckets of blood, and the streets are kind of like just painted red right now, where they're butchering these large animals. You've probably noticed as you guys have been walking along the city, through the city right now, like kind of lining along all the walls and down through all the streets, there are these rain gutters, and you get the impression that this place probably gets a lot of rain. But right now it's a clear, dry day, and the amount of blood from these butchers hacking away at these large beasts, creating big dino steaks, are probably how this place got its name of the Red Bazaar. You see nearby a colorful building that's 2 stories tall. The bottom half's kind of kind of like a stucco, and then the upper half looks like it's made out of bamboo. But across the front of the building is painted a large blue lizard, and you can see that it's like one of its big feet is like stomping the ground, and like it's painted to look like little lightning bolts are kind of like shooting out of its foot as it like stomps, and you think that's probably the thundering lizard, you would gather. You see people kind of pouring in and out of it on a fairly continuous pace, and you can hear music coming from inside what sounds like uh, kind of a whining like stringed, some sort of whining kind of stringed instrument, as well as little cymbal sounds coming from inside as well. Many of the people that are coming out seem to be in a happy daze, but it does sound very rambunctious inside of this tavern.
Well, let's go in.
Sure. Yeah, as you enter
Happen to
inside...
see...
Go ahead.
We happen to have had our, like, Jurassic Park, like, Dr. Sattler moment where we, like, see a dinosaur for the first time, or...
Not quite yet, although you have seen plenty of murals depicting some of these creatures that you've heard about. But you haven't seen one cross your path yet. So, as you enter the tavern, it's pretty jam-packed. On the far side, as you enter, kind of next to the bar, there's a little kind of stage that's been set up. It's a bit of a raised platform, and you see a red-skinned tiefling woman doing kind of a belly dance up there. She's got finger cymbals, and she's got kind of this shiny feathered cloak on that kind of glimmers as she twists and turns up on the stage, doing her belly dance performance. And the tables are all mostly full. Off in one corner, you can see instantly this catches your eye, I think, Sigismund, a medium-sized woman. She's got kind of fair skin and stark white hair like yours. And as you guys all enter in, she kind of momentarily glances. She doesn't like linger or anything, but she just turns as you all enter, and you catch her gaze for a moment, and she has those golden eyes just like you. And she seems to be she's got a couple other people sitting at the table with her. And the person that you notice that she's talking to is a stark white dwarf that seems to be covered in scars. And he seems to be missing an arm as well. And they seem to be kind of arguing about something. You guys enter in, and there are kind of like scantily dressed serving maids moving quickly throughout the place, kind of serving people. They're colorfully dressed, and they carry their trays on their heads. They seem to don't even have, they're very good at keeping them balanced. A woman kind of rushes past you with like 6 different drinks on this tray atop her head. And she just kind of says, "Pardon me," as she kind of quickly rushes past you guys to a table full of, probably some locals that look like regulars, probably. And so you guys are here in this tavern. There does seem to be like a few places that you guys could probably squeeze in together. There's a table that people seem to be getting up from currently nearby where the woman and the dwarf are sitting. And then there's one also on the far edge of the bar, kind of more near the stage where the belly dancer is performing.
If I could get closer to the woman and the dwarf, I'll do that.
I'll make my way to the belly dancer.
I'm going to the table with the dwarf, or near the dwarf also.
Okay. Let's see here.
I'll stay near Wuce so that no one tries to exterminate him.
Sorry, what was that?
I said I'll stick with you so that no one tries to, or like mistakes you for a vermin of some sort.
They'd be quite surprised if they mistook me for a common rat.
You are the rat man.
Yeah, and so Sigismund and Ayan, you kind of plop yourselves down at this table near the dwarf and the woman and a couple of other of her companions. Before you can tune into the conversation too much, a dark-skinned woman holding an empty tray under her arm kind of shimmies over to you guys, and she asks, she looks kind of most of the other people in here, aside from the table with the dwarf, look like they're probably locals, natives to Port Nine Zaru and to Cholt. But she's probably seen some more newcomers as of late, and she says, I can see that you all have that look on your faces. You must be new here to Port Nine Zaru.
Yeah, we just arrived, like, very, 5-10 minutes. How long did it actually take to walk there?
Yeah, I'm probably about 15-20 minutes or so between arrival and getting to the tavern here, yeah.
Okay.
Well, she says, well, welcome to Port Nine Zaru. I hope you enjoy your stay. I suppose that you've never had tej before, then. That is a drink that we make here especially. It is quite delightful.
Oh, then please bring me one. Then you would be a sweetheart.
And she looks down at you, Ayan, as well. She's got kind of like a loose-fitting purple linen skirt on, and she's got she's basically just got like it's kind of like a halter top. It's just like a piece of fabric basically that's wrapped around her upper torso, just barely covering most of the rest of her. She's very like, lithe and fit, and she's got that kind of like gleam of sweat, of the humidity pouring off her. She's got two long dark braids that go down her back, and she's got these light brown eyes that are kind of hard to turn away from. She's very beautiful.
I believe I will try this tej as well. And if you wouldn't mind, upon your return, answering some of our tourist questions.
She kind of gives you a smile and she says, I'll answer anything that I can, and I'll be back in a bit. And she kind of darts away, and now you can kind of tune in and you can hear the dwarf talking. He says to the woman with the golden eyes, he's like, I've stood atop every mountain in Cholt. I know every gorge and crevice, every plateau and trail. My memory is an iron trap. I forget nothing. Trust a dwarf, I always say, because a dwarf will never steer you wrong. And the woman's like, we've had plenty of offers just like this one. And your price is too high. 30 gold up front is ridiculous. I think that we'll find someone else to guide us into the jungle. And he says, you'd be doing yourself a disservice, lass. I'm fearless. There's no dragon, beast, or undead horror that scares me. You want a guide who runs away at the first sign of danger? No, you want a dwarf. I'm the toughest dwarf around. Red Dragon bit off my arm, he did. And he points to his missing arm. And yet here I stand. Takes more than a dragon to stop Hugh Hickenstone. And the woman's just like, She kind of just like yawns in his face, and she's like, "Off with you, Dwarf. I'm not interested." And he kind of like angrily just like pushes his chair back and goes back over to the bar, and you see him order an ale, and he's kind of grumbling under his voice. And you hear the woman turn to her other two companions, and she says, "I swear, everyone in this town is just trying to get every cent we have." And then, as she continues to like speak with her companions, the you hear the music kind of die down momentarily, and the belly dancer hops off the stage, and the tiefling actually comes and sits at that table as well. After kind of collecting some of the coins that have been tossed up on the stage, and as she sits down, you hear the woman say, "That was one of your best performances I've seen you do yet, Joy. Well done."
And I'm clapping the whole time.
Yeah. And you see the tiefling kind of very pleased with herself, kind of shimmy down into a chair and take a drink of the that's was waiting there for her. And this seems like you gather that this is maybe a kind of a different adventuring party that's come here for probably the same reason as you guys, that are just kind of now fresh into the city as well. The waitress comes back a few minutes later with your drinks. They're poured into these pineapples basically that have been cut in half. And there's a little bit of kind of a chill wafting up from them. When you take a sip, it tastes like just a myriad of sweet fruits mixed with honey that have been kind of fermented into sort of a tropical mead almost. But the liquid is cold and very refreshing in the heat of the sudden heat that's kind of assaulted you all. You're all probably sweating very heavily into your through your armor and stuff like that, or your leathers or whatever that you're wearing. And she says, "Well, I can spare a few moments. What is it that you wanted to ask of me?"
Well, first off, I would like to ask if you know anything about the group sitting behind us. They're very curious.
Yeah, she says, she kind of leans in a little closer, and because you guys are, kind of close, and she says, they've been here for 3 days. The tiefling woman there, she's become quite a popular attraction to the locals. I think their leader is the woman with the golden eyes. As far as I can tell, I think her name is Feysaria. She's rather bossy. And I haven't spoken to the other two much, but they kind of seem like they just keep watch on the two women. And they've spent most of their time here in the tavern performing and listening to some of the natives talk about the city.
So that gentleman, the dwarf, I think he said that his name is Hugh, is a jungle guide, yes? Do they often frequent this place?
She says, yes, with many of the newcomers, such as yourselves, to the city, people have been coming up with innovative ways to make a bit of coin. There are many locals of Cholton, the Portenay, and Zaru itself who are offering their services as of late as jungle guides. Hugh has been on the island for a time. I do know that what he says, I believe, is true, that I don't know if it was a dragon, but some large beast did bite off his arm. He came here with a band of adventurers, much like you, I guess, over a year ago, perhaps. As far as I know, I think they were working for an organization called the Flaming Fist, who have come here to explore some of the natural resources that the island provides. Their rest of his adventuring party never made it out of the jungles, but Hugh has gone in and come out many times ever since arriving here. He is a hardy dwarf, but he also to me seems a bit impetuous.
That's very good information. Are there any other guides which you would suggest that we could speak to?
Yeah, she says, if I were to recommend a guide, a friend of mine, actually, she is very good. She was born here on Chult. Her name is Azaka Stormfang. I could, get in contact with her for you if you wanted. She comes from the jungles. She comes from the jungles and goes as she pleases. She's not always in town, but when she comes, she always pays me a visit.
I think that we would like to explore as many options as possible, if you are agreed, Sigismund.
Sure. I mean, I'll sort of get a little bit closer to her than maybe most people would sort of invade her personal space, not in a threatening manner, but you know, just sort of showing off the eyes, and ask like, if you wanted to see me alive, is Asaka the way to go for us?
She says, well, like I said, Asaka was born here in Chult. She grew up in the jungles. She definitely knows them better than anyone that I personally know. She has spent her life in the jungles of Chult, and I think that if I were to go into the jungles of Chult, I would love to have Asaka by my side.
Okay, can I sense if she's embellishing a little bit here, maybe lying, or if she's being...
Yeah, you can make an insight check.
Insight, let's have a look. Insight. Oh boy.
Yeah, you know, as far as you can tell, you know, she just seems like she's speaking highly of her friend. She also says, there are many like you and Azaka that are offering their services as jungle guides, and there are also many in the port that would try to deceive you. Whoever you choose to guide you into the jungles, should you do so, just be careful.
Thank you. We will. Can we find you here if we want you to get in contact with Asaka for us?
Yeah, she says, I work here most days, from morning to late afternoon.
Thank you. I'll just sort of sit down.
You want me to go get the dwarf?
I think if we talk to him, that's a really good starting point. We could also talk to group, and I forgot the lady's name. I'm just going to call her Faye.
Faysaria.
Faysaria. Yeah, I think if we speak to them, maybe they could recommend some guides to steer clear of.
Yeah.
I would love to have a chat with her.
So
when Ayan notices that this lady Faysaria and Sigismund have the same eyes, he sort of does a double take, and then he leans back and he just sort of taps her on the shoulder.
She kind of like snaps around and she says, "Excuse me."
Yes, I couldn't help but noticing that you share some interesting physical traits with my friend here. And I don't mean to be racist. I'm not being rude. But and that's of course what people say right before they say something racist, right? This is something that I have not seen before. Do you know each other?
She looks over at Sigismund and she says, I've never seen that man before, but if you must know, celestial blood runs through my veins, and on top of that, I am a noble woman, so I would ask that you keep your filthy hands off of me, please.
I am also noble, and I washed my hands before I sat down.
You did not.
But she didn't need to know that. But thank you. Anyway, sorry to have bothered you. I just thought that maybe since you are newcomers in town and we are even newer than you, perhaps you could share some information.
The tiefling actually pipes in. She says, Faye, calm down. There's no need to be so rude. They are just like us here in a new city. They're just trying to find their bearings. And she says, I apologize for my sister. She can be a bit abrasive at times. My name is Joy.
Joy, question. You got horns, she's got eyes. Y'all got different skin. How's she your sister?
She kind of laughs in a musical tone. She says, well, that is a complicated and very long story, but I assure you that it's true.
I can buy you a nail for the story.
She says, well, I have another performance coming up soon, but we'll be in town for a time, so I'm sure that we can find a time and a place, and I can tell you my story.
Good. Because I'm interested. That's quite unique. Sisters that, wow.
And she says, it is true what the serving girl said. We've had many offers for jungle guides since we've been here these last 3 days. Some seeming more legitimate than others, but I can say that my sister Faye here, she has a low tolerance for dwarves. She says, personally, I find them very interesting. And they are beautiful stone craftsmen. The dwarven cities I visited are some of the most beautiful ones that I've ever seen. Although this Port Nine Zaru is quite interesting as well. I'm enjoying all the colors and the smells.
It is very colorful, but it's very hot.
And she smiles and she says, I don't notice that very much.
Well, you're not wearing the armor, and I can say that I'm glad you're not wearing the armor. You're a very beautiful woman.
And yeah, for a tiefling, depending on your tastes and proclivities, she and the Joy and Faye are both very seem to be very beautiful, and in the right circumstances, probably charismatic women. Although for some reason the Azamir woman seems to be in some sort of mood. Joy says, my apologies. These are two of our traveling companions. This is Diero, and the other one there with the two different colored eyes is Oberon. And you see the one that she points to called Diero. He's kind of wearing light leather armors. He's got a hand crossbow that's like sitting on the table in front of him, and he's just got like a long sword at his side. He's got kind of like scruffy black hair and a headband kind of tied around his head, and then the other one, Abron, he's got one blue and one green eye, and he's wearing kind of these long green robes that have like a gold trim in the collar and the sleeves, and he's got like a gnarled little staff that's leaned up on the chair behind him, and they both just kind of nod. Uh, um, the one with the two colored eyes, Abron, he nods and he says, "A pleasure to meet you, new friends. We are finding this new place quite interesting. But what Joy says is true. It does appear that the influx of newcomers here in Port Nyanzaru are causing some of the less reputable characters to kind of come out of the woodwork. I'd hold on to your coin purses if I were you. We've already had a few things stolen off our persons wandering the streets."
Yes, if you don't mind me asking, what brings your group here to Port Nyanzaru?
Joy says, "We are members of an organization called the Lord's Alliance. We are working for a man named Gundren. He sent us here to research." She kind of looks at the rest of her party and says something called a soulmonger.
Very interesting. Though we are not in the employ of any particular faction or group, come searching for the same thing. Associations with the death curse.
For like just a very quick instant, they all kind of look down at their drinks, and Joyce says, "Yes, we had a fifth member of our party, but this death curse that they're calling it, it's already claimed him."
Stella?
What's that?
Stella?
No. She says, "No, I don't know who that is."
But we were all friends of hers, and our investigation of the curse stems from losing a friend as well. You know, Faye and Joy share a common purpose. And I have found that on expeditions into dangerous places, it's often advantageous to work together. Consider, and of course I must talk to my friends, but would you consider joining forces?
Joy looks like she's about to speak, but Faye kind of cuts her off, and she says, "We're going to solve this issue on your own, but thank you for your offer. Joy, that's enough. We don't know these people. You've told them too much already." And Joy kind of just like shrugs, and she and you like now you hear like the stringed instrument kind of pick up again. She goes, "Oh, it's time for me to perform," and she hops up and runs back up to the stage and begins to like start. The music starts very slow, and she kind of stops at the edge of the stage, and she just slowly starts to like with her finger symbols, and then she like seductively kind of goes up the steps and begins to go into her next performance of her belly dance.
Riceak starts howling.
Yeah, she looks down at you and like gives you a sly wink. And then she goes into like a very elaborate twirl with her feathered cape just kind of swirling around her. Make a charisma saving throw for me.
Charisma. I typically fail on these.
Yeah.
In love, kid.
Oh, nice.
Shit.
When it counts.
Yeah, you get like when she starts to go into her twirl and her cape is like shimmering around and behind her, like for a split second you get like you feel compelled to like reach into your coin purse and throw money onto the stage, but then like you kind of snap out of it and you can do it anyways if you want, but like you get the sense like something almost like took over your hand for a moment and would cause you to like throw coins on the stage. And you can now see like kind of around you some of the other people in the bar are like reaching for coins wherever they can and trying to tossing them up onto the stage as she's twirling with her cape floating around behind her.
So I just I stand up and I give her a wink back and I head to the bar and I ask for the strongest drink they have.
Ooh. So the bartender is he's a much of a similar build to the blacksmith that you bought your weapon from. He's very like burly and big. He's got like a light blue linen shirt on that's kind of like open down most of the front. And it seems kind of similar, like he understands you, but you get the impression that he probably can't speak a lot of your common tongue. But he does bring you a small glass of a clear liquid, and you take a whiff of it, and it like just burns your nostrils, and your eyes begin to water. And it also has like at the end, it has like a faint banana smell to it a little bit. And he just kind of grins at you. He's got like his two front teeth are missing. His two big front teeth.
Would I, from all my years of sailing, would I know what language they speak normally?
Shit, I forget what it's called off the top of my head, but I think it's like Choltean. Probably,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I take my drink and I head over to Ayan and the rest.
Yeah, like as he gives you your drink, one of the bar maidens kind of comes up and they speak to each other in kind of like a series of clicks. It's like kind of like
like Bushman.
Yeah, and some kind of hums and strange words. And then he pours a few different kinds of drinks for her and gives her like a little basket of dried fruits and as well, and she goes off to one of the tables.
So I walk over to Ayan and those guys.
Yeah, sure.
So what have we found out?
Well, we have found out that we are not the only ones looking for the soulmonger, and I believe that our friend Garn may be able to speak to that dwarven gentleman over there, who is a jungle guide. Garn, would you mind inviting him over to sit with us?
Sure.
Cool.
So I walk over there to him and amble up to the bar beside him and go, "Hey, we need to talk to you."
So before we go any farther, we're coming up on 3 hours now. Does everybody have an hour left in them?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll do one more 5-minute break before the final hour, so everybody can get up and stretch and get a drink or do what they need to do.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.